you join me at a slightly worrying time. Slightly because it only affects about 3 people that I've seen. But if those 3 people are representative, then this is a big problem. And that problem is that those 3 people have found it very difficult to get into Warhammer the Old World, and as such have abandoned the game. I've seen these people on a couple of Facebook groups, and I thought it was a real shame that they couldn't get into the game. They thought it was too complicated. One person even said that him and his friend had spent a year painting up full armies, had one game of it, and said, this is rubbish, far too many rules, we're not playing this ever again. And it got me thinking, how can we stop that from happening to other people who want to get into Warhammer the Old World? So I've got together a little list that I'm going to run through now, and hopefully you guys can pick up some helpful tips that's going to get you on the road to playing Warhammer the Old World as quickly as possible. Number 1, this might sound a bit obvious, but I think it's actually important, which is read the rules a few times. And I like to read the rule book, maybe because I'm weird, but in my spare time. So on a Sunday afternoon, with a nice little drink, I'll sit there with the rules just flicking through, and over time you tend to absorb all the little rules and all the little extra bits that you might miss in a game. And it's especially useful if you've tried playing a game and then you read the rules after the game to recap what you did, and that's the way that you realise all the little things you did wrong, the little bits you missed. And the more you read them, even if you just read a page at a time, chances are you'll pick it up and it'll lodge itself in there somewhere, and that'll help immeasurably, I think. Number 2, start small. As I said before, the person I saw on the Facebook group that spent a year building an army, his friend did the same. They had a full, what I think was a full 2,000 point game to start. And I think that's definitely going to be overwhelming. If you've never played the game before, you've suddenly got a whole army with all these special and rare units that have got special and rare rules that you're going to have to get your head around, as well as just learning the normal rules of how you play the game in the first place. I think that's far too much. Much better to start small. Just have a tiny army to have your first few games. This channel did the Border Patrol video, and I think Border Patrol is perfect, absolutely perfect for doing this. It gives you a small 500 point army. Within that, you'll only have one special or rare unit. And so there's only going to be one unit that you have to learn any janky rules for. And everything else is just basic. You'll have a character, so you can learn character rules. You'll have your basic infantry block, or blocks, for which you can learn their rules, and maybe a bit of cavalry. But there's only going to be one unit that's going to have any sort of weird and wonderful rules. And it's perfect. There's not too much to get your head around. I've had a couple of games of it, and actually it's still really fun. It's a great way to get into the game. You don't even need to paint up that much. And the good news is that doing that a few times is going to really cement the knowledge of the core rules in your head, and it's not going to feel overwhelming. So I'd recommend Border Patrol, and if you want to do something a bit bigger, maybe 750 points for your first game. But definitely don't go any bigger than that, I'd say. Number 3, watch battle reports online. If you can find any YouTubers that you like who do battle reports, that'd be great for learning the rules. Ideally, at this point, I'd like to say, watch us, because we do battle reports. And although we're getting close, which I've been saying for a year now, it's still not happened. So you'll have to find someone else. But hopefully you can, and that you can watch them playing the game. That's a great way to pick it up. Watching other people do it, other people who know the game, and just doing it. If you watch them and pay attentively for a turn or two, you pick up an awful lot doing that. So I would recommend you find those and give them a watch. I'm not going to recommend any because I don't actually know any. I tend to find that maybe it's my age, but I find a lot of the YouTube battle report people quite shouty. Number 4, use the reference sheet as a walkthrough. A handy prop that I had just prepared on the side of the table is the Warhammer the Old World rulebook. Within this, if you turn to the back, specifically page 344, you will find the quick reference pages. These have a total walkthrough of what a turn consists of. And there is absolutely no shame in using this as a structure for your first few games. So what I did, and what I still do, is I just work my way through. So I will just leave this on the side of the table. Ideally, actually scan it, print it off, much easier. But just leave that on the side of the table. Go, okay, I need to do the strategy phase. Work through the strategy phase. Get to the next, the movement phase, and so on and so forth. And this will walk you through structure by structure. And eventually, you won't need it anymore. And finally, number 5. Play on your own. Sounds silly, doesn't it? But actually, I think you should. If you play on your own, just have a very small border patrol for 2 sides. If you're lucky enough to have 2 armies. If you're not, you can proxy it. Just use paper or something. And just work your way through the game with these 2 little forces just to see what would happen. And you don't even have to try and win. You could just say, well, I'm just going to set up a combat so I can see how combat works. Put them together, run through it, work out the kinks and the nooks and crannies. And that's the best way to learn, isn't it? And you can actually set up the bits that you're struggling with. So if there's a particular phase you don't understand, just set up a table to help you work through that phase a couple of times. It's a really great way of actually just going through the rules and just, again, lodging them in your mind. So if you run through all those steps and you bring them together, actually, hopefully you can see that you can start Warhammer the Old World in a really small, compact, easy to pick up way. And that really, if you just kind of use that as a building block and you add to it over time, it's really not that complicated. The core rules, they're not actually that long, really. You put them together. You can ignore all the advanced rules, ignore the universal special rules if you want to. Just put your stuff together and get that kind of the phases down in your mind, the turn structure. When you've done that, start adding in the other stuff as and when. Build your army so it's a bit bigger. Play a game of your 500 points, then 750, then 1,000. Work up to 2,000. You're golden. So look, guys, I hope you found that useful. If you didn't, well, sorry. If you did, brilliant. Get out there, get playing Warhammer the Old World. And until next time, bye.